Success, everyone talks about it, everyone wants it. And almost everyone has been lied to about what it actually is. From the moment you are young, you are fed a simple formula: work hard, follow the rules, climb the ladder, and one day success will arrive like a reward at the finish line. But this lie is exactly what keeps so many people frustrated, exhausted, and stuck. Because success is not something you chase. It is something that emerges when you understand why you do what you do. The world tells you to focus on outcomes, money, titles, recognition, applause. These things look like success from the outside, but they are empty without purpose. You can reach the top of the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. And by the time that realization hits, years may have passed. This is why so many people feel unfulfilled even after achieving what they thought they wanted. They followed the formula perfectly, yet something still feels missing. The real problem is not a lack of talent or opportunity. The problem is chasing goals that are not connected to meaning. When you wake up every day driven only by external rewards, motivation becomes fragile. The moment things get difficult, and they always do, you begin to question whether it's worth it. Burnout creeps in. Passion fades. Discipline feels like punishment instead of commitment. That's the cost of believing the lie. True success doesn't start with what you do. It starts with why you do it. When your actions are connected to a clear sense of purpose, effort feels different. Hard days don't disappear, but they make sense. Failure doesn't define you. It teaches you. Progress stops being about speed and starts being about direction. You may move slower, but you move with confidence because you know where you're going. The lie also tells you that success is a destination, a moment where everything finally feels complete. But success is not a single achievement. It's a lifelong practice. It's the consistency of choosing what matters even when no one is watching. It's waking up and recommitting to your values again and again, regardless of the outcome. When success is treated as a destination, you live in constant anxiety about arrival. When it's treated as a practice, you live with clarity. Comparison is another trap built into the lie. You look at others and measure your worth by their timeline. But comparing your journey to someone else's results only distracts you from your own purpose. Success without alignment leads to regret. Alignment without applause leads to fulfillment. And fulfillment is the only kind of success that lasts. The truth is uncomfortable, but freeing. There is no shortcut, no universal blueprint, no guarantee of applause. But when you stop chasing what looks impressive and start building what feels meaningful, everything changes. Energy returns. Focus sharpens. Confidence grows, not because you know the outcome, but because you trust the reason you started. And that is the kind of success no one can take away from you. Most people spend their entire lives doing things without ever understanding why they are doing them. They wake up, follow routines, meet expectations, and chase goals that were handed to them by someone else. And when they're asked a simple question, why do you do what you do? The answer is vague, rehearsed, or completely absent. This is not because people are incapable of finding their why, but because they were never taught to look for it. From a young age, we are trained to focus on results. Grades, rankings, promotions, salaries. These become the markers of progress, so naturally we assume they are also the source of meaning. But they are not. They are outcomes, not causes. When your identity is built around outcomes, your sense of direction disappears the moment those outcomes change. Lose the job, fail the exam, miss the target, and suddenly you feel lost. That's what happens when your why is never defined. Finding your why requires stillness, honesty, and courage. 3 things the modern world actively discourages. Noise is everywhere. Notifications, opinions, expectations, comparisons. In that noise, it's easier to copy someone else's path than to question your own. It feels safer to follow instructions than to challenge assumptions. So people stay busy convincing themselves that motion equals progress, while quietly feeling disconnected from what they do every day. Another reason most people never find their why is fear. Purpose demands responsibility. Once you know why you exist in your work or your life, excuses disappear. You can no longer hide behind circumstances or blame others for your lack of fulfillment. Knowing your why means making decisions that might disappoint people, disrupt comfort, and challenge familiar patterns. And for many, comfort feels safer than clarity. There is also the misconception that a why must be grand or dramatic. People wait for a lightning strike moment, a life-altering revelation, and when it doesn't come, they assume they don't have one. But purpose is often quiet. It reveals itself through patterns. What consistently matters to you? What angers you? What energizes you? What you are willing to sacrifice for? The problem is not that people lack a why. The problem is that they ignore the evidence of it because it doesn't sound impressive enough. Without a clear why, motivation becomes unreliable. You push yourself when things are exciting and quit when they're not. Discipline feels forced because there is nothing anchoring it. But when your actions are rooted in purpose, effort becomes sustainable. You don't need constant inspiration because your reason is deeper than emotion. You know what you stand for, and that stability changes how you show up in every area of life. Most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they never decide what truly matters to them. And until that decision is made, success will always feel accidental, fragile, and temporary. The moment you stop living by default and start living by design, the search for your why stops being a mystery and becomes a responsibility. Most people believe discipline appears when motivation shows up. They wait to feel inspired, energized, or confident before they take action. But motivation is emotional, and emotions are unreliable. They rise and fall based on mood, comfort, and circumstances. If you build your life around motivation, progress becomes accidental. This is why so many people start strong and quit quietly. They were never lacking motivation. They were lacking discipline. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about consistency. It is not a burst of effort fueled by excitement, but a quiet decision made repeatedly, especially on days when you feel tired, bored, or unsure. Discipline is what carries you forward when motivation disappears. It is the difference between wanting something and choosing it. And choice, unlike emotion, is always available. The mistake people make is assuming discipline is punishment. They see it as restriction, pressure, or sacrifice. But real discipline is an act of self-respect. It is the decision to honor your long-term values over short-term comfort. When you say no to distraction, procrastination, or excuses, you are not depriving yourself. You are protecting what matters. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It is about being honest with yourself. Every meaningful outcome is built on ordinary days. Not the days when everything aligns, but the days when nothing feels right and you show up anyway. That is where discipline lies. It shows up in the small, unglamorous moments, starting before you feel ready, continuing when progress feels invisible, and finishing even when no one is watching. Over time, those moments compound into trust. You begin to trust yourself because you keep your promises to yourself. Discipline also removes the constant negotiation in your mind. When everything depends on how you feel, you waste energy debating whether to act. But when you decide in advance who you are and what you stand for, action becomes automatic. You don't ask if you feel like it. You act because it aligns with your identity. Discipline simplifies life by eliminating excuses. The truth is, everyone is disciplined about something. Some people are disciplined about avoiding discomfort. Others are disciplined about staying busy, but unfocused. Discipline itself is not rare. Intentional discipline is. The difference lies in awareness. When you consciously choose where your discipline is applied, you take control of your direction instead of drifting. Motivation will come and go. It always does. But discipline builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence, not the loud, arrogant kind, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can rely on yourself. That confidence changes how you handle setbacks, pressure, and uncertainty. You stop needing constant reassurance because your actions speak for you. In the end, discipline is not something you wait for. It is something you practice. Every day you choose effort over excuses, you reinforce the person you are becoming. And that daily choice, repeated enough times, shapes your future far more than any moment of motivation ever could. Comfort feels safe. It feels familiar. It promises peace, stability, and control. But comfort has a hidden cost, and that cost is growth. The moment you choose comfort as your priority, progress quietly comes to a stop. Not because you failed, but because you decided not to stretch. Growth does not happen where things are easy. It happens where you are challenged, uncertain, and slightly uncomfortable. The danger of comfort is not that it feels good, but that it feels reasonable. Staying where you are makes sense. Avoiding risk feels responsible. Delaying action feels practical. And over time, those reasonable choices stack up into a life that feels smaller than it should. You don't suddenly fail. You slowly settle. And settling is far more dangerous than failing because it doesn't alert you that something is wrong. Comfort convinces you that tomorrow will be a better time to change. Tomorrow you'll start. Tomorrow you'll take the risk. Tomorrow you'll speak up. But tomorrow becomes a habit, and that habit becomes a ceiling. Growth requires friction. It requires you to step into situations where you might be judged, rejected, or proven wrong. And that uncertainty is exactly what comfort trains you to avoid. Every breakthrough in your life came from a moment that challenged you. The first time you tried something new. The first time you failed and kept going. The first time you chose courage over certainty. Those moments didn't feel comfortable, but they were necessary. Comfort didn't build your strength, struggle did. Comfort didn't expand your confidence, experience did. When you prioritize comfort, your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. Small challenges start to feel overwhelming. Feedback feels like attack. Effort feels like burden. But when you regularly choose growth, discomfort becomes familiar. It stops being a signal to quit and starts being a signal that you're moving forward. You don't eliminate fear. You learn to function despite it. Comfort also isolates you from your potential. It keeps you surrounded by what you already know, what you already believe, and what you already do well. Growth requires exposure to new ideas, new people, and new perspectives. That exposure can feel threatening because it challenges your identity. But without it, you remain confined to a version of yourself that is outdated. The hardest part is that comfort rarely feels like a mistake in the moment. It feels like relief. But over time, relief turns into regret. Not because you tried and failed, but because you never tried at all. Regret is not born from discomfort. It is born from avoidance. Choosing growth does not mean rejecting peace or balance. It means understanding that comfort is a place to rest, not a place to live. You rest to recover, not to retreat. When comfort becomes your lifestyle, ambition fades and purpose dulls. But when comfort becomes temporary, growth becomes inevitable. In the end, the question is not whether discomfort will appear in your life. It will. The question is whether you will choose discomfort on your terms, in service of growth, or whether it will arrive later as regret. Everyone wants to lead, to be respected, followed, listened to. But leadership does not begin when others recognize you. It begins long before that. In the quiet moments when no one is watching. Leadership is not a title you are given It is a standard you hold yourself to. And if you cannot lead yourself, no position, authority, or recognition will ever make others truly follow you. Leading yourself starts with clarity. You must know what you stand for before you can expect others to trust you. Without personal values, decisions become reactive. You chase approval, avoid conflict, and shift direction whenever pressure appears. But when your values are clear, choices become simpler. You may not always choose the easy path, but you choose the aligned one. That consistency builds integrity, and integrity is the foundation of leadership. Self-leadership requires discipline, especially when motivation is absent. It means doing what needs to be done, not because you feel inspired, but because you committed to it. When you consistently follow through on your own standards, you build credibility with yourself. And people can sense that. They trust leaders who are predictable in their principles, not those who are emotional in their decisions. Accountability is another pillar of self-leadership. It is easy to demand responsibility from others, but far more difficult to accept it yourself. True leaders do not blame circumstances, luck, or people for their shortcomings. They own their outcomes. They ask what they could have done better, even when the situation was unfair. This mindset does not weaken you, it strengthens you. It puts you back in control. Leading yourself also means managing your emotions rather than being controlled by them. Pressure, criticism, failure, and uncertainty are unavoidable. But your response to them defines your leadership. Reacting impulsively may feel justified in the moment, but it erodes trust over time. Emotional discipline allows you to pause, reflect, and respond with intention. That restraint is a form of strength most people underestimate. Another overlooked aspect of self-leadership is the willingness to learn. Leaders who stop learning begin to rely on authority instead of wisdom. When you commit to continuous growth, you stay adaptable. You remain open to feedback, even when it is uncomfortable. You recognize that leadership is not about being right, but about getting it right. This humility attracts respect far more than certainty ever could. Self-leadership also means setting boundaries. You cannot lead effectively if you are constantly overwhelmed, distracted, or depleted. Saying no is not a weakness. It is a strategic decision. When you protect your energy and focus, you show others what you value, And people follow what you prioritize, not what you preach. Consistency is where self-leadership becomes visible. Anyone can lead in moments of confidence or success. But leadership is revealed in moments of difficulty. When plans fail, when pressure rises, when no one is there to encourage you. If you can remain grounded, focused, and committed in those moments, you become someone others naturally look to for guidance. Leading yourself also requires courage. Courage to make decisions without unanimous approval. Courage to stand by your values when they are tested. Courage to admit mistakes and correct course. This kind of courage is not loud or dramatic. It is steady. It shows up in daily choices, not grand speeches. When you lead yourself well, influence becomes a byproduct, not a goal. People are drawn to those who are clear, disciplined, accountable, and consistent. They follow because they trust, not because they are told to. Leadership rooted in self, mastery creates loyalty, not compliance. In the end, leadership is not about how many people follow you. It is about how faithfully you follow your own principles. When you do that, leadership stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody. And from that place, influence grows naturally, sustainably, and authentically.